Hello and welcome to a very special episode of Powered by Instinct. My name is Toby Phillips. I'm the head of marketing here at Colby Corp. Each year at Colby, we host what are called the Conative Excellence Awards, essentially awards that are honoring our certified consultants for doing top-notch work with the Colby theory and with their clients and helping empower lives around the world. So for today's episode, I wanted to take you into conversations that I had with three of our most exceptional certified consultants. These are the three finalists for what we call the Colby Professional Award for Individual Leadership. The finalists this year were Sarah Gillet Couto, Morgan Hutchings, and Shawn Gulyas. I had a chance to catch up with them and talk to them about what they are doing with their clients, how they are using Colby theory, and get some of their incredible wisdom and experience to share with all of you. Let's go ahead and start with Sarah.
So my name is Sarah Gillet Couto. The name of my firm is Gillet Couto Consulting. I've been an executive coach for the past 10 years. I launched my company in 2013 after being 18 years in the banking industry. And I discovered Colby in 2017 when I hired a professional coach and she asked me to take Colby before we could have a strategy session. So that's how I discovered Colby. And I ended up becoming certified because I didn't understand my profile. So my profile is 4567. I have it here. And not because I forget it, because I think it's very cool to have it at hand and be able to share it every time I talk to a client or a prospect. Because Colby has literally changed my life in a way where after 16 years and a half in the corporate banking industry, where I was very successful, I started at the bottom, ended up at the top being the director in the alternative investment fund. And I loved what I did until, unfortunately, I lost my job because the bank was acquired by another bank. And then it took me almost a year to find another job because of the economy. It was during the mortgage crisis. I ended up finding a job, which I kind of knew it wasn't really what I wanted to do, but it was the only thing available. So I took it. And it was literally a year and a half of being very miserable. When I say miserable, to be very honest, I cried for a year entirely, like every day. Every day. It was just horrible, horrible. And I wouldn't quit because I was thinking, I'm not a quitter. I'm going to get through this and it's going to work. It's going to work because I know. And little by little, my self-esteem started to drop at a level where I was emotionally drained, unstable. I thought I had depression. I ended up asking to resign. Of course, they didn't want to let me to resign. But to make a story short, a month later, 2 months later, I was out of the bank. And I thought, okay, maybe my banking history is over. Maybe it's not for me. I went into coaching. I love coaching. I decided to go into coaching. And that was it. And never again, I thought about that bad experience, just thinking it was a bad time in my life. And when I discovered Colby and they gave me that profile, they said, you're a mediator. That's fantastic. And I was like, okay. And I didn't quite understand what it meant. So I decided to go to Colby and get certified just to understand who I was because it didn't make any sense to me. And I remember, I think it was in the second day, they were explaining Colby A and B and C. And the light just went on because the last position I had in banking, Fact Finder was like a 9 or 10. I'm a 4. And the Quick Start was like a 1, not to say 0. And I'm a 6. And I was so strained. And I remember telling the people there, I said, you just unlocked, something huge because I thought it was me, but it wasn't me. It was just the cognitive fit that was not a fit. So I think I left that training like running. And I went to all my clients and I said, you gotta try that. You gotta try that. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about it because it has given so much peace about why I do so well certain things, why I do excel sometimes, and why I didn't during the almost 2 years in banking, So I think that's my story with Colby. So I share it every time. Every time I get an opportunity, I tell people because you gotta see who you are when you're free to do what you love doing and because it's going to change the way you work. It's going to give you peace. Even my husband, sometimes he would tell me that I have ADHD. And because I do have a son who has ADHD, I thought, okay, maybe I have it too. No, it is not that. It's that when you're a mediator, facilitator, changing tasks often, boost your energy, your cognitive energy. And I realized that it was because it was kicking my cognitive energy. And I was always so excited switching. And I told my husband, I said, it's not that I have ADHD and I know the issue because my son has it, but it is because it allows me to go faster and be more productive in everything I do. So after certain times when I'm working on project or with client, I really need to stop. And that's
Hmm.
it. I'm taking, and I do something else. And I get super excited doing something else. And then I stop. And that's how I work best.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm really glad that you're not in that situation where you're crying every day. That's just so miserable.
It was horrible.
Uh, so take me a little bit back. So paint me the picture of your consulting practice. So what are you doing? Who do you tend to work with the most? And then we can go from there.
Sure, sure. So obviously my practice has a little bit changed over the years, but I still work mostly with bankers, financial institution, because this is where I'm coming from.
Hmm.
And this is why I had a lot of contact. And usually I work with their teams so they become more productive and more efficient, right? And I come with that tools that nobody has because many people confuse personality and cognitive. They confuse. So that's why I come in. So I usually work with teams. I like to start with the top teams because if you need to have approval from the top to go down.
Hmm.
Like you cannot just start at the bottom and trying to convince, like people say, you're not convincing anyone. You're giving them the best solution ever. So, and that's what happened with Banco Santa Cruz. I worked a lot in Dominican Republic and I started to work with them in 2016. And in 2017, after I got certified, I went back to them and I said, next year we need to do this tool. We need to use Colby Wisdom with you. And we have actually done so far, I believe, over 500 profile in this bank because every year we take a group like of 100 or 80 and we take them through the Colby Wisdom so they get the Colby A. The senior level, we take them through A's and B, and sometimes they switch. So, when they switch, we do again a B to make sure they still align and there's no cognitive stress. And for example, with this bank, we've been going down the level, and what we're working on now also based on their budget is starting to work by groups, right? So they know their call BA, they know how they are. So now we're going a little bit deeper as to how we can make the best of your profile, right? Because for some people, we've done it 3 years ago. So we need to refresh those people about that. So that could be an example. I'm also currently working with a community bank in Miami where we did call BA last year. They did not have enough budget to do call BB as well. So this year we're doing call BB. And it has been fantastic because we're doing call BB and they're going through a lot of change. And the director of operation, who is the one who hired me, is totally stressed. And her stress is cognitive. So we had this very interesting conversation yesterday where I explained to her what was happening. And she said, I'm so happy we're having this session with the entire team together because I want you to use my stress, to address what is going on within the group.
Hmm.
Because it is true. What you're saying is true. And they're making her to be like kind of a mediator, if I may say that. She's not a mediator. She's a very strong fact finder
Oh,
and kind of resisting quick start. And, her call BB came like initiating quick start. So there's a disconnect. And we had a very nice conversation because she has also hired people. So she has 2 employee in contradiction. So that's going to be super interesting because not that we want that to happen in a team, but I was so happy when we spoke yesterday because I was confirming everything to her. And she said, this is the first time somebody's going to put like something in writing that I can share with my supervisor and the leadership team. This is what is happening because it is being quantified. And this is why sometimes so hard to quantify stress in the workplace. So that has been just fantastic. I mean, so I don't have a specificity when I work with banks as to, whether we're going to work on. I do mostly teamwork and leadership work. But the initial step, whether it's a single person hire me or bank, is always call me. Like this is non-negotiable. If you want to work with me, you have to do your call me. And then we'll go from there, so then we have different way of approaching.
that's great. And when your clients are coming to you, what are they expressing is wrong? I think part of it part of it is you're going to help them figure out what's wrong, but what are the symptoms? What are they experiencing? What does the team look like that they're like, oh, Sarah, please come help us?
Yes, yes. Well, the thing that they don't know how to translate cognitive stress. So the first thing they say is that I try my best. And when you have people who say, I try, you know, there's something that is not aligned, you know, because if you love what you do, Toby, and if I come to you and you feel comfortable and I say, how you doing? You say, I'm doing great. And even if you messed up something, you're going to say, oh, listen, I made a mistake, but I'm doing great. Right. So, you know, but when you don't know, it's that trying and trying doesn't mean anything. Right. Because either
Right.
you do or you don't. Right. But that's what I see. And I see they're tired. They don't sleep well because, you know, when your cognitive energy is not aligned, it affects you affective. It affects everything. So people don't sleep well. People start having problem in their team because they feel they're oppressed. Maybe they're not, but they feel like something is oppressing them. So that's another thing that comes into the thing. Sometimes people not aligned, they're even seen as the non-cooperative person, which,
Yeah.
you know, like, no, he or she's not part of the team, or this is not working. And people tend to pinpoint, like they look at the fact and they assume based on what's happening. And I'm saying that because in a group, it was actually a medical office. It was not a bank. I went into that company and they told me she is the problem. Like compliance officer is the problem. You know, when people say, and actually wasn't. The the person that was not aligned was the friendliest person of the office, who had a bustling eye personality, and she was nice to everybody, but she was doing a very bad job.
Mhm.
But because her personality was overwhelming other people, they couldn't see her as the failure. So they started accusing and putting the blame onto somebody who was doing a great job, but was not as friendly as that person. So you got to
Right.
be very careful when people call you. That's why I like to use Colby when I step in, because I want to know who I'm working with. And I
Mhm.
want to know if they're cognitively aligned. That's what I use A's and B. Because after that, you can do anything. You can work on communication. You can coach them. You can do anything you want. But you need to start, you know, at this level, at the cognitive level. And then you'll go from there. Because then you may have personality issue, but that's different. You can change that. You cannot change your cognitive profile.
Yes. So my name is Morgan Hutchings. I operate out of St. George, Utah for Odd Experts. My Colby is 9425. And I've been certified for, gosh, I think 5 or 6 years now. This might be our 6th year, I think, of being certified now.
And can you just tell me a little bit more about Odd Experts and the kind of people and teams that you work?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do work in audiology, so hearing healthcare, primarily with adults 55 to 75 years old that are struggling with hearing loss. The teams that I work with are the ones that are actually operating the clinic. So clinic owners, entrepreneurs, the managers, the mid-level managers, all the way to the phones team, front office staff people. Primarily my focus within Aud Experts and the coaching that we do is the people, the team building, the hiring, the onboarding process, the people problems. I think that's how pretty much everybody that I talk to sums it up is you have people problems, you go to Morgan, or you have things that you need when it surrounds your people. I'm the one that they call.
And how did Colby get introduced to your practice?
I think, years ago, we were originally getting certified, I think, just to help our own team. 6 years ago, Auto Experts wasn't around. So it was originally Intermountain Audiology, which is actually now the highest rated hearing healthcare clinic, audiology clinic that's privately owned in the country. We have over 1,000 Google reviews in St. George. It's pretty phenomenal for our industry. Originally, it was just for us. I think when we met Colby, we came down, we were fortunate enough to have Kathy do the onboarding for us all those years ago. We had, I want to say 12 or 15 employees probably, and 4 locations here in Utah. And we had picked up a few in Wyoming at the time. And same thing. We were just, we were kind of dabbling with how do you help with these people? How do you encourage the people? How do you light their fire? How do you encourage them? How do you motivate them? How do you onboard them? All of it. How do you communicate? I came from a background of just getting out of college and working odd jobs to get out of college, construction, maintenance worker, directly into the front desk of Intermountain Audiology and slowly working my way up through the company. we were just, like I said, dabbling, and we were very fortunate to find you guys. And it was, Phoenix and St. George are fairly close. So we were like, hey, hop on a plane and, spend some money and see if they can help us. And it absolutely has. I mean, all those years ago, I could have never imagined that for our own team, selfishly, what we've been able to do, but also, in the coaching aspect of taking Colby to all those other people has been amazing. So,
So let me start with internally. What sort of people problems do you think you've used Colby with?
our biggest change, and this is something that I do on a day to day, so it's probably where my mind goes to first, is the onboarding. So early on, and I think everybody probably makes this mistake in small business, but learning on the job, learning on your feet, thinking on your feet, it's just such a, I don't know if I can use the word miserable, but it's not a good way to onboard employees. And we did that for years. I mean, I've been with Jared and the company now for, I want to say we're going on 7 years, 8 years now. And those first 3 or 4 years early on, that's all it was. It was like, if you wanted to work at the front desk, you were going to follow Luann around and do what she does and sound like she does. And there wasn't a script, there wasn't a manual, there wasn't a handbook, there was nothing. And one of the things that Colby taught us most is that, the reason that I think we struggled, I don't know if everybody goes through this, is that like 5% of the population might get through that onboarding plan and be okay with it, right? Some of those quick starts, they might be a little bit more adaptable, maybe. But the people we were hiring that we wanted at our front desk, they wanted a plan, right? They wanted the structure, and we didn't have it. So that was the biggest initial thing once we got into Colby, was like, wow, who are we surrounded by and what are the needs of our team members? Okay, they want structure, they want consistency. How do we give that to them? And it immediately, process, documentation of what we do daily, onboarding manuals. And we have so much stuff now in the clinic. I wish I had the manuals and whatnot, but we've got onboarding videos. We went as far as created a university now. So not unlike those old boring 80s videos that you would watch when you got hired at a new
Yeah.
job. But, we call it a university. So if you want to learn how to answer phones in our clinic, you're going to do a few different things. You're going to read, Dr. Darrow's book, which is going to teach you about hearing loss and dementia and cognitive decline. You're going to watch our videos. You're going to work your way through a manual that's associated with those videos. And so that has helped us a ton. First, by understanding who were we surrounded by, who was the right fit for the front desk. And if we were going to hire that person, what would they want? And of course, they wanted the structure. They wanted the consistency of a good onboarding plan. So it sounds simple, but it wasn't simple those years ago.
Paint the picture for me from hiring to onboarding and then forever. How do you introduce Colby and then keep it in front of your people and keep them coming back to it and making sure they're in the right role, that sort of?
Yeah. So one of the things that we do now in our onboarding process is, if you want a job with us, you call a phone number, you listen to a 5-minute voicemail or so telling you about us, who we are, what we believe in, what our core values are. You listen to that voicemail first, then you leave us a voicemail. You can leave as many as you'd like. You can leave 2, 3, as long as you would like, sort of just telling us about yourself. And it's a great opportunity to obviously hear them, pick up on how they speak about themselves. Great opportunity to hear them out. Then I do a virtual interview. And on that virtual interview, if they've kind of, green light from Morgan, I'm just getting to know them a little bit. Have you done research on us? Do you know what we do? And you can tell pretty quickly the ones that are just, click, click, click and applying for all the jobs they can apply, and the ones that actually want to work for us. And if they get to that point, then they get a Colby A. So then they'll take a Colby A index. I'll explain to them what that is. There's no wrong answers. We're just trying to find out how best you want to be communicated with. It's not going to affect the job or the position or anything like that, because it doesn't at the end of the day. If we found somebody that we truly loved and we wanted them on the team, we'd find a spot on the team for them. They take that Colby A, and then we get an in-person cultural interview first. And then we'll actually do a secondary operational interview, which is basically, here's again, who we are, our core values, what we believe in, what our goals are. What do you believe in? And then the second one is that, the boring stuff. This is the job. This is the day-to-day stuff. So right off the bat, before they actually even get a job, we're doing that Colby A index on that cultural interview. We're talking about the Colby, how it would ideally be a good fit for the position. And then 90 days into the job, the Colby B comes around. They're introduced to the Colby C shortly after that. And from time to time, if we ever make changes or anything, we'll have them take a Colby B. Otherwise, when we do like our quarterly planning sessions, where we get the whole team together, we'll normally do an icebreaker activity, and we'll have like name badges for everybody, or we'll print out the little like erg arrow menus and have those out. So we try to represent it, but the beginning portion is definitely the important part for us, at least, is that, right fit analysis. It's the onboarding. It's how they want to be communicated with, and the A's and B's when they've been around for about 90 days.
Okay, so let me talk a little bit more about, your external work with clients. So again, sort of back to the people problems is why do they call you, or what are you going in to help them solve? What's the big pain point? And you're like, you know what, we gotta use this Colby stuff because I think that's where your issues lie.
Yeah. A lot of times, when I talk to clients, it's two things. When I'm talking to business owners, entrepreneurs, it's freedom or growth. And it doesn't have to be one or the other. But a lot of times as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, when you've set out to go and do some big thing and they're running a clinic and they're humming along and they're right at that $1 million mark, which is kind of always the goal in our industry, is each location to be about $1 million location. And they start to struggle right around the $500,000 mark. And they're just wondering, why can't I break through that? And the reason they can't break through that is they can't visualize or they can't see the end goal of how to get that freedom or that growth, meaning that it's just them in the business that's generating the 500,000. And if they're not in the business, there's no money. So they have no freedom, or they don't know how to replicate themselves, right? If Morgan's the only one that knows how to be successful in the clinic and I don't know how to teach Toby how to do my job, I can't replicate it. We can't have growth. And both of those things for us, Colby's extremely helpful. If I have a business owner who wants more freedom, and let's say they are a quick start, like some of the entrepreneurs that I work with are, it's just as much about having them focus on what their next passion is or the next thing that they want to go and do and create and work on. Because, they feel like, well, if I'm not doing this thing, I have nothing else to do. But, in their part-time, they want to go start a boutique. Like other business owner I work with has been in audiology for years, and she wanted to go start a boutique. And it's just like the same thing. The coaching is still there for how do you go and do that? How do you free up your time? Same thing with the growth. If I have a successful business owner who's also the provider or the doctor in their office and they want to hire another one, it's like, let's sit down and talk about what makes you great. And a part of that is going to be the Colby. And then it's as simple as let's find someone else that shares those similarities when it comes to the instincts. And as long as they agree on cultural values and, you interview well and the Colby's there, it's like a no-brainer. So freedom and growth for the business owner specifically, employees, because I talk to employees all the time, that's stress. It's 110%. When an employee's calling me, it is like, without a doubt, I'm stressed out. The business owner is like, chasing me down like a dog. They're constantly emailing me. They emailed me 4 times last night at midnight. They won't leave me alone. I have a meeting tomorrow and I'm, freaking out. I don't know if I'm getting fired. I don't know what's happening. And I become that kind of sounding board for them. And they just want to know what it is. And again, a lot of the business owners that I happen to work with, maybe you guys experience this, are quick starts. I would say 75%, 80% of the people that own the clinics and are the people that are the main provider in the clinic are quick starts primarily. And so when I have a front office staff person that's a 8824, or whatever, and they want that structure, they want that consistency, it's just as simple as getting them, this, in the same room and talking about it. And talking about the similarities and talking about the strengths, talking about some of the differences and just finding that middle ground and getting an agreement. And that's what we call that recalibration, because it's not like anybody's in trouble. Nobody's to blame. It's just sometimes you have that separation that happens in everybody's offices where you think your employees are doing a certain list of tasks and they have that mission creep where they start taking on more and more and more. And I bring on more stress because I'm the employee that's filling up my cup more and more. And I'm stressed than ever. Business owner still thinks I'm just doing 2 things that she assigned, 2 years ago. And so it's tremendous. It's so helpful in that regard to be able to sit down. It's not about the person. It's not personal. It's all facts and not feelings. And there are feelings involved, but boy, does it make it helpful to sit down and say, here's some of the reasons that this is happening.
My name is Shawn Gulyas. I am the founder and thought catalyst with HumanWorks 8 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. My MO is 5482. And how long I've been certified, when people ask me that question, I always have to look. I don't even know. I took my first Colby in 2005. So it's been at least a few years. Let me just say that, Toby. How about that?
That's great. And how did you end up getting introduced to Colby?
Well, you know what? I worked for one organization for 25 years, and about 15 years ago, Bill, who was part of the family leading the organization, came back from Strategic Coach. And he said, Shawn, in Strategic Coach, we had to take this Colby thing. And at the time, I was a jaded assessment guy. Let me tell you, one more assessment is all I needed in my life at that point. But he was so excited about that I said, Bill, I can tell something about this has really touched you. I'm going to take it. I took my result back in 2005. And then I said, you know what? I want to learn more. If you're so hot about this Kolbe thing, how about I go get certified? And luckily for me, he said, Shawn, go sign up, go do. And that sort of was my entry into the Kolbe world.
And so what do you now? Tell me just about your practice, the types of work you do, maybe the types of clients you end up getting involved with.
Fantastic. Well, our organization, Human Works 8, is all about bringing life to work and work to life. And we do that by really elevating people and elevating cultures. Our services really are what I call ways into organizations. And one of those ways in is through Kolbe and the Kolbe Wisdom. We call that talent canvas. And through that, we look at helping organizations really optimize talent and really look at individuals uniquely and how they're getting them into the right roles and really leveraging their strengths. So that is the one that really touches Kolbe directly. But other parts of our service areas, such as our core value touch points around how we elevate or discover core values in an organization, really has a Kolbe connection, because values are all around that affect part of the mind. And we start there with organizations, and that usually leads to them wanting to learn about and grow all three parts of their mind, both cognitively through leadership development, as well as then how to bring in that conative element, which might be the piece that they're least familiar with. So through our core value touch points and doing effective values work, Kolbe comes into play. We also do strategy and planning for organizations. And all of our strategy and planning starts with values. And if we start with values, then again, it always leads to the Kolbe Wisdom. And then we do a lot of leadership development. And you can't really do leadership development in our world unless Kolbe is a part of that, helping leaders understand themselves.
So then how do you introduce yourself? I imagine there, a lot of people might be like you were, maybe a jaded assessment person. And they're like, oh God, these human works guys are going to make me take another assessment. I've done all of them. So how do you sort of pitch yourself and explain like, hey, you're actually going to get value out of this?
Well, you know what? It's not about the assessment, Toby. So I think that's the bottom line. I never pitch an assessment. I pitch an understanding how in this day and age, I believe as far as leading people, growing people, elevating people in an organization or just in the world, it's all about understanding people better. And when we start looking at the three parts of the mind from a cognitive approach, from an affect approach, and then from a conative approach, people are interested in that. It's not about the Kolbe assessment. It's really about Kathy's other wisdom and around really thinking about how to look at an individual in a unique way that really elevates them both as a human being, but then also how to leverage those strengths and their unique talents in an organization. So again, I don't go in talking assessment, Toby. So I never get really, if somebody asks me that or finds a way in through that, they're always wanting to know more that way. It's really about how it's going to help people. And when you start talking there, that's what organizations need.
My next question is a little bit about why do you choose to do what you do? There are a million types of consultants out there in the world, a million types of coaches about everything under the sun. So why this?
What I'm really good at is to get people thinking about themselves and the action they're taking differently, Toby. That's what I'm all about, to really challenge people. I do that in real life and I do that in work life that way. So when I left an organization after 25 years, focused on leading a large company in the human resource area, I thought, what do I want to do with my life? And I just started writing and thinking and putting down all my thoughts, all my learnings. And the Kolbe Wisdom was a big part of that. And I've told Kathy that really directly. She's really inspired me to how I think about people, the world, and what I want to do out there. And as part of that, I believe Kolbe's been a main driver for me to really just be an ambassador and really looking at people well. I don't think we take enough time just to pause and think well of a human being. And when I built HumanWorks and brought in the rest of my team to join me in that venture back in October of 2019, I said, we're about people, and we're not going to work with everybody. We don't want to work with everybody. And we only want to work with people that believe what we believe, because that's the only way it's going to work. I'm not trying to sell anything. I'm just trying to be an ambassador to this way of thinking, this way of growing, this way of learning about people. And I think, since I had that strong commitment and sort of passion around that, Toby, it just, it's created a thriving business where we have almost too much opportunity, where people are wanting to learn more about us, and I don't have time to talk to them about what I believe, what I know, and what I do.
You have a wealth of experience. So, if you had to give maybe the top 2 things you think new consultants should consider, what advice would you?
My advice would be learn. And to me, it's not about an assessment. The learning is so broad, and it can start with that assessment, and definitely that is a way in. But as a new consultant, unless you're in it to grow and live with the theory and really bring in other pieces, you're only getting that tip of the iceberg. What's underneath that is really where the power is. So that's what I've tried to share because I've had to grow. It's been 15 years, a lot, from an internal consultant to working externally. So my tip would be, don't stop learning about it. It's not just, okay, I think I understand how to give good coaching around an A assessment. That's a great place to start. Yeah, I'm not diminishing that whatsoever, but it's that growth and learning that I think is so very important. And the second, I guess, the top of my thing is jumping right to me, is that I think there's a lot of power in Colby in the whole diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, mattering area. And it's an area that I've been asked to sort of tell my story, sort of show how I'm trying to grow my practice a lot lately. And when I bring the 3 parts of the mind and some of the Colby wisdom into that conversation, it really stops people to sort of say, oh, we're equal there? Wait a minute, why don't I know that? And I believe as a new consultant, if that's of any of interest to you, and I don't see how it couldn't be if you're thinking well about people and using Colby, that would be an area to explore, think about, and see how Colby can aid in those discussions, aid in opening that up in organizations or in teams.
Thank you so much to Sarah, Morgan, and Shawn for taking the time, and more importantly, for empowering the lives of people around the world. As always, if you are just getting introduced to Colby, the best place to start is by taking the Colby A Index on Colby.com to identify your own instinctive strengths. Now, you heard from some of our great consultants. We have excellent consultants all around the globe. And if you want to work with a consultant near you, just head to Colby.com and look for the consultant search, type in where you are, and see who you can work with in your town. Thank you for joining us on Powered by Instinct, and we will see you next time.
Thanks for checking out this episode of Powered by Instinct. This show is brought to you by Colby Corp, a company that helps leaders and organizations thrive using the only instinctive strengths assessment on the market. If you enjoyed this episode, then follow Powered by Instinct wherever you get your favorite podcasts, or join us online at Colby.com/podcast for all the latest episodes.